Hello. If you've been following this channel for a while, or if you've been stalking me in real life, then you know that I've done quite a few road trips in China. I've had my Chinese driver's license since 2017, I believe. I'm on my second license now, and I've probably driven in the proximity of something like 100,000 kilometers all around the country. And even before I had my license, from my first ever road trip, when I started this very same YouTube channel you're on right now, driving around China on a tricycle, to a thrilling journey across China in a Porsche 911, which I didn't actually film for YouTube because at that time, I gotta say, I wasn't really creating content. I was just enjoying my life, which I should get back to. To the most recent years and the resurgence of this YouTube channel where I've been driving Chinese electric cars all around China, most notably NIO EC6 and NIO ET5 Touring, to the most recent road trip in a BYD Seal, which I did just last week, and you can watch that road trip review on this channel if you are so inclined. All I'm saying is that while I wouldn't call myself an expert on China or on road trips or on EVs or anything like that, I would say that I have plenty of experience driving in China. So in this video, what I want to do is talk about the logistics of road tripping in China. And I want to pay particular attention to electric road tripping, EVs. What are the costs involved? If you are a tourist, can you drive in China? Or if you're a resident in China, how do you get your license? And not only that, but more importantly, should you actually consider self-driving in China, or should you simply opt for public transit? Which we all know, between high-speed rail, airlines, and of course buses, China is great in terms of tourist infrastructure. All of that will be addressed in the following 10 minutes, approximately. In order to drive in China, you need a Chinese driver's license. If you already have a valid foreign driver's license and you live in China, i.e. you have a work permit and a residence permit, a Chinese license is quite easy to get. In order to get your local license, you simply need to pass a multiple choice test at your local Department of Motor Vehicles, the equivalent of that in China. To study for this test, there is an app with all of the questions exactly as they appear on the test, word for word, image for image. It's easy. All you have to do is get at least 90% correct and you are good to go. Essentially, you're also going to need to pass your physical exam. The most recent one I did when I renewed my license, they tested my eyesight, my hearing, my grip strength, stuff like that. Very, very easy. If you physically can function, you're an able-bodied person, it shouldn't be too difficult to pass. I have no idea about accessibility or exceptions they make for people with disabilities, so I'm sorry I cannot help you there. By the way, you can look up Cheguansuo on WeChat on your mini program. You can find your local Department of Motor Vehicles, and you can find out which documents you need and how to book your appointment. Jiayo. Now, if you are a tourist, it is actually a little bit different and maybe even a little bit easier. You're not going to get a Chinese driver's license, but you will get a temporary license that is valid for your time while you are in China. I have, of course, personally never applied for this, but I do have a friend from Germany who applied, and he said it was quite easy. He applied for it in Beijing directly at the airport when he arrived. It is my understanding that most major international airports will have a department for you to apply, but I definitely recommend that you do Google this yourself before you enter China in order to be sure of the opening times, the local requirements, and the locations. In order to get a temporary license as a tourist in China, the following is what you need. First, your foreign issued driver's license. Translated. You need an international driving permit, which you can get in your home country. You need a completed application form, which you can find online. You need a hotel booking that you can show to the police or a police registration form. And you need at least 3 1-inch color photos with a white background, essentially passport photos. My understanding is that this process in the airport when you arrive is actually relatively quick if you have everything you need. Again, this is what I was told, and he said it was very, very easy. Now, once you have your driver's license or your temporary driver's license, of course, you're going to need a car. If you are unable to read or type in Chinese, this may become the biggest problem for you. Most people these days can just rent a car through an app or on a mini program on WeChat. It is disturbingly easy to rent a car in China. When you rent a car, they will even drive the car to your location, your hotel, your apartment, office, wherever, McDonald's, drop it off for you. When you are done, they will come back and pick it up. You can actually even select a different location for pickup. I can't guarantee that if you want to drive it from Beijing to Xinjiang, they'll have an ability to pick it up in Xinjiang. It's going to depend on which app you choose. But just for example, you can choose different pickup and drop off locations. It is also quite affordable to rent a car. Here's a quick look at Ctrip car rental. There's plenty of others. They're all pretty similar. So starting here on Ctrip, for the cheapest car we can get is a Chinese SUV for 108 RMB per day. It's about $17 per day. Same price here for a Toyota sedan. If you want to go electric, which I recommend because the infrastructure here is amazing, look at this, around 170 RMB for a Chinese electric car, or 223 RMB per day for a Tesla Model 3. Of course, you're going to find that there are some various taxes and fees included, like pickup and drop off fee. So it's going to be a little bit more than simply 223 times 2 for a 2-day rental. As you can see, the price is slightly higher than 446. Now you can also subscribe to a car, for example, like a NIO. They do offer subscription service. If you're planning for a longer trip in China or a longer road trip, this probably makes more sense than just renting an electric car. If you subscribe to a NIO, you can of course take advantage of battery swapping, which will make your life so much easier in terms of energy replenishment. Especially if you can't speak or read Chinese at all, it's going to save you a bunch of time and a lot of hassle fiddling with the apps. Plus, if you do drive a NIO, you'll get to drive in a very comfortable, high quality Chinese EV for around a similar price of riding in a Model 3. Let's take a look at some other prices in addition to the cost of the car rental. The biggest expense that you're going to face in addition to the rental or the subscription is going to be the highway tolls. You're really not going to be able to avoid highway tolls, unfortunately. China does not really do moderately high-speed frontage roads that run parallel to the highway like we often have in the United States. Essentially, if you want to cover long distances, you're either going to be on the highway or on very low-speed roads that will not get you anywhere fast. If you do have a lot of time and short distances between stops, well, then it's possible to avoid the highway. But if you land in Beijing and you'd like to drive to the far west in China, for example, you're going to need to be on the highway for the most of it. And Chinese highway tolls are no joke. Here is an example. Approximately 1,500 or so kilometers of highway driving cost me 665 RMB. That is about $80 to drive on the highway for a relatively short distance. When I drove in a big loop around the entirety of China, which you can see on this channel, it cost me well into the thousands, probably something like 5,000 or 6,000 RMB just for highway tolls alone, if not more. I don't know exactly, it was a couple years ago and I didn't really keep track, but it was a lot. Now here's a pro tip though, if you do really want to avoid highway fees. During national holidays, such as National Day or Spring Festival, all of the highway tolls are waived. This helps ease traffic and hopefully encourages more people to travel home or do things on the national holidays. Unfortunately, these holidays are of course very crowded. This is China after all. But if you can avoid the first and let's say the last day of the national holidays, then you might have a pretty open road because people will drive to their hometown and then hang out with their family and then drive back from their hometown back to where they live. Easy peasy. Next, we have to add on the cost to replenish the energy in your vehicle. Of course, with a gas car, this is very easy. You don't even have to pump the gas yourself. You even can't pump the gas yourself, just like Oregon or New Jersey. Chinese people will come and pump the gas for you. Unfortunately, it's quite expensive to have a gas car in China. You're going to be paying 600 or 700 or 800 or more RMB just to fill up a tank of gas. It's very, very expensive. So this is where an EV really comes in handy. We beat gas cars big time. The cost to charge your EV, of course, will vary quite a bit depending on a bunch of factors like the time of day, how busy the station is, how fast the station is, the vendor, all of those different things that go into it. However, I would say that typically to charge a standard size battery of 70 or 80 kilowatt hours will cost around 100 RMB more or less. So here's an example. I recharged the BYD Seal 57 kilowatt hours of energy and it cost 82 RMB. This was at a highway supercharging station. The BYD Seal has an 84 kilowatt hour battery pack, so if I had recharged from empty to full, it would have cost something around 120 RMB, something like that. Not that important, but in my opinion, very, very affordable, especially versus gas. The next fee you're going to run into is parking. Outside of major cities like Shanghai or Beijing, parking is very affordable, dare I say cheap. Often you can even book hotels or guest houses that will have parking included. If not, no big deal. If you're in a smaller city or a smaller town, parking is probably going to be somewhere around 15 RMB overnight. It's not even really enough to even think about. It's like $1 or $2. And speaking of hotels and being affordable, of course, depending on how hoity-toity you are, your cost at a hotel is going to vary quite a bit. But outside of the main cities, you can find decent to even good hotels for, let's say, around 200 RMB per night, even a bit cheaper. For example, this hotel in Beihai in Guangxi was 138 RMB. It was really, really nice. The owner was super friendly. It was, I guess, more of a guest house. Even the owner offered a second night for half the price if I chose to stay. So it would have been about 70 RMB for the second night. Very, very cheap and very, very high quality. And of course, if you don't want to stay in a hotel, you can also car camp. It's very, very easy, totally okay to sleep in your car in China. I say totally okay, but maybe technically slightly illegal because as a foreigner, especially, you're supposed to register where you sleep every single night. However, practically speaking, nobody's ever going to bother you. Police will absolutely not care. People do it all the time. This isn't like America where you're going to get harassed for loitering. People aren't going to come tap on your window and pull a gun on you. You're not going to get carjacked. It doesn't really happen in China. You don't have to worry about it. The only real proper advice that I have for car camping is this. Highway rest areas are perfect for camping. Many people will do it. RVs, truckers, people in vans, anybody that's on a road trip will pull over in a highway rest area and sleep. The only problem with this is they can get quite loud, especially with the truckers. So what you're going to want to do is, if you're there earlier than most people, you pull off to a corner that looks like it's going to be pretty dark. You get ready to sleep. Maybe you put out your tables, your chairs, your barbecue, whatever you want to do. But the most important thing is to make sure there's not big parking spaces for trucks nearby, because they're going to pull in at night and they're going to be very, very, very loud. So look for a place without easy access for trucks. The other advice I have for you for car camping is you can totally do it pretty much anywhere outside of the main cities. It's very, very easy in villages and towns, on country roads. There's always going to be places you can pull over. Of course, just don't make a mess, pick up after yourself, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so after I've given you all of that advice, told you how much it's going to cost, all that good stuff, the real question is, should you really consider self-driving in China? Especially if it's your first time in China. I would say that this is a very difficult question to answer. Every single person has a different personal situation. They have a different ability to endure hardships or desire to endure potential challenges on a holiday. I get that. But I also think that some people really love driving, they love road tripping, and a place like China is probably almost like a white whale for some people. You know, it represents something that would be a challenge, and to some people, a challenge is a good thing. I also think that if you cannot speak a lick of Chinese, you can't read Chinese, if you've never used WeChat, you don't know how mobile payments work in China, at the very least, for the first few days, you're gonna have a really, really hard time, and maybe the entire journey you might have a hard time. On the other hand, when you're actually driving, when you're on the road, it's going to be very, very easy, because some of the roads in China are a little bit confusing. Not really. The highway's super duper clear almost all the time. With your navigation, it's going to be very, very clear. Almost every single traffic sign, especially directional signs or road signs, they will have the romanization or pinyin underneath the Chinese. So of course you can't read Chinese, but if you can read English letters, you're going to be okay as long as you pay attention. I think that if you have an adventurous spirit and you're willing to face a few challenges along the way with regards to language barriers and technology barriers, I think it can be very, very rewarding. You're going to have a great time. It's going to be a lot better than a guided tour on a bus, for example. You're going to be able to see so much more of China than what you've ever thought you could see. Sometimes, you know, I love high-speed rail, but sometimes I'm on the train and I'm looking out the window and I speed past something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could stop there, right? That looks amazing. That village, that scenery, something, it looks awesome. And then I try to like quickly take a screenshot of my map as I'm going 300 kilometers per hour past this place. And then I try to take a note. I want to come back here. And then I pretty much never do. And just simply having the freedom, being able to stop wherever I wanted. This is how I found the art in the desert that I found, that I'm going to show you right here on the screen. This is how I found the tortoise-shaped village that I found, that was just incredible. And this is also how I found a place that I never showed on YouTube. If I still have a clip, I'll put it up right now, of this town with seagrass rooftops. Amazing, incredible. I didn't know this existed, but thankfully I had a car I could stop and talk to people. And all of these three places I just mentioned are not places that you can easily get to via public transport. The other thing is, Chinese highways are pristine. They're so perfectly manicured, very, very high quality. They're fantastic, just a pleasure to drive on, especially along the ancient Silk Road. You know, out far west China, you're just gonna have incredible vistas, beautiful landscapes, stuff that will blow your mind that you've never even thought possible. The only issue I would say is that if you don't have an ETC, like a electric toll card reader, when you do go through the highway tolls, you need to find this sign right here. It says Gongren. It means like a person worker, basically. So that's an actual human. You got to find that if you don't have ETC. This was just a very simple overview of road tripping in China. I hope it helps somebody who was considering making a road trip in China to maybe take a risk and actually get out there and do it. And if that is you, please leave a comment below. Let me know how your road trip went. On the other hand, perhaps if somebody was thinking about doing a road trip and they saw this video and they decided maybe it might be a little bit challenging, too difficult for them, I also hope that that was a good choice for you. I hope you enjoyed your high-speed rail or your bus tour or whatever you ended up doing while in China. Whichever way you went, if you did find it helpful, I do hope you like it, you subscribe, you ring the bell, and you pay me some money if you want. I really got to offset those highway tolls somehow. Whew. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.